this needs to be understood, and it's not well understood, and in some cases, not even in military circles, although in some it is. Uh, I believe that space superiority is now the decisive element in warfare, just as air superiority became decisive in World War II. The war was won on the ground, but who controlled the air decided who was going to win on the ground.
Yeah.
And the and it's the same way now. I mean, if you could uh, imagine World War II, but with the Axis powers having just one of the current space capabilities, say reconnaissance satellites, all right, which is only one of several very important space capabilities. If they had had reconnaissance satellites, the U-boats would have won the Battle of the Atlantic. Britain would have been starved out.
Yeah.
The Japanese would have won the Battle of Midway. They would have seen our carriers long before we saw them. They would have launched a strike, sunk our carriers, no air cover. The rest of the ships would have been sitting ducks. That's it. Okay. And so, even uh, a mismatch, I mean, imperial mismatch was a real, imperial Japan was a real mismatch against the United States in terms of industrial capability and any metric. Okay. Uh, they would have won had they had space superiority.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and then today, it's not just reconnaissance satellites, of course. All the communications go through satellites, the ability to coordinate and command forces, the ability to target weaponry, GPS guided munitions can be hundreds of times more accurate. So, an artillery piece with GPS guided munitions can get as many hits as 100 artillery pieces without them. And so it's decisive. And um, so there's going to be a real competition. There already is, but it's going to become much more extreme. Because nuclear weapons have neutralized themselves. No one is willing to use nuclear weapons for any other reason than existential survival against a nuclear attack by an opponent. You know,
Yeah.
neither the Russians nor the Americans are going to want to have a nuclear war over Poland. Okay, it's not happening. Uh, it's too extreme. But if you could knock out all the enemy satellites, uh, then your conventional forces will win. Uh, and so I think we're going to see fighter satellites, not just anti satellites like uh, the Russians and Chinese are currently introducing, but fighter satellites that can protect our own satellites.
Hmm.
Um, that this is what we're going to see. So we have the entrepreneurial space race, which will determine all space capabilities, both civil and military, and then we're going to have the actual military competition. Uh, Now, it's my hope that the military space race will put pressure on, for example, Russia to reform in order to compete. That is, why is there no Russian SpaceX right now? They
Yeah.
certainly have the technical talent, and there are pools of capital owned by people who have greatly interested in space. But it wouldn't make sense to start a Russian SpaceX right now because if you did and it was successful, it could be stolen by some oligarch in the Kremlin right from under you. Why make something that somebody else is going to steal? So, you know, reform is necessary if they're going to compete. And if they do have a rule of law in Russia, then maybe all of a sudden we'll discover there's nothing to uh, there's no one has an enemy. There's no enemy.